Welcome back to Together We Awaken, Finding Light in the Dark. This is episode 9, The Courage to Walk Away, Choosing Yourself in the Face of Discomfort. I'm Allison Bruner, your soul sister, human guide, and rebirth midwife. And I just want to be transparent with you as we begin. When I started this podcast, I thought that I would be talking about things that I had already healed, lessons I had fully integrated, experiences that I had moved through and could now speak about with clarity and distance. But what I have found is something a little different. Each time that I sit down to create an episode, it hasn't been every time, but recently, a little more and more, I've tracked into the field using my clairsentience mostly, just to see what's needed by my community. So it's not just my own field, but the collective field of the people that I serve, the community that I'm slowly gathering, tracking into the energy that's present and seeing what is needed, what wants to be explored, what needs to be talked about. And again, I find myself drawn to themes that I am still moving through. These are not topics that I've mastered, and they're not polished insights from a place of finality. More often than not, these episodes reveal places where I'm walking right beside you in my own way. Sometimes I've been here before, and sometimes I've circled through the same pattern for years, but am still moving through it at a deeper layer. I'm still learning and still listening. And I just want to say that out loud because this isn't a space where I want to pretend to have it all figured out. I'm not a guru. The idea makes me laugh. I'm not here to teach from a pedestal. I'm here to tell the truth. And in that sense, I am a guide, but I'm also a human being in process. I'm a storyteller and a witness to my own unfolding and maybe to yours too. So if you come here hoping for wisdom from someone who's mastered all the hard things, I'm not that person. But if you're looking for real conversations from someone who's in it, who's doing the work in real time and choosing herself, even when it's messy, and who's willing to speak from the middle of the process, then you're in the right place. Because I really do believe we are in this together. So today's episode is about something, well, one of the most important things that we ever have to do on this healing path, which is walking away. Not to prove anything or because we don't care, but because because staying would require us to keep betraying ourselves. So that was the topic, or the energies that I tracked into before I started this episode today. I started taking notes about, is this place where I think a lot of us are in, is walking away from relationships, mostly or situations where we've had to compromise ourselves, or we would if we were to stay in them. So I want to talk about the moment when you realize this isn't working anymore. This doesn't feel good. This isn't who I am. And how terrifying it can be to actually do something about it. I've been living this in a lot of ways lately. I've had to step away from relationships that I once held really close. People I trusted, people I cared for, laughed with, people who were important to me for a long time. And for a while, I thought I could keep those relationships intact by adjusting myself, by being more patient and accommodating and understanding. But eventually, the weight of all of that became too much. And I started to notice this growing tension between who I used to be and who I have become. And I realized that some of the connections in my life were built around a version of me that no longer exists, or who's on her way out. when I started calling in a life that actually feels good, feels better, that really honors my worth. So not something that's just functional or stable, but beautiful and nourishing. Everything that didn't match that started rising to the surface, started glaring in my face. It would show up in my body. I'd feel the dissonance. It would be in my emotions. I was more upset about it. And it started showing up in the people around me and in their behaviors. It's like I couldn't hide from it anymore. I couldn't pretend anymore. And I could feel the difference between relationships that were rooted in mutual care and the ones where I was over functioning, over giving, or just adapting for them. The ones where I had made myself small just to keep the peace. The ones where I tolerated being taken advantage of or emotionally disregarded because I thought that was how I honestly used to think that that's just how things were, that that's how relationships work. And when I started honoring my worth, when I finally began to trust that I don't have to earn a right to feel good or rest or live with joy and freedom, those relationships became impossible to ignore. And some ended with a rupture. Others faded out. And a few I had to walk away from quietly, even when a part of me still cared. Because deep down, I knew that I was no longer willing to betray myself to stay connected. And that's what this episode is about. It's not just the decision to walk away, but the grief and the clarity and the discomfort and the freedom that comes with it. I want to speak to the part of you that's trying to hold something together that's already falling apart. The part that's scared to let go, even though you know that it's time. The part of you that doesn't want to be alone, but also doesn't want to keep abandoning yourself to feel loved. There's no shame in that. We have all done it. But today, we're going to talk about what it means to stop doing it, to stop making yourself smaller for people who refuse to grow. And we're going to talk about what happens when you start choosing yourself instead. Let's take a breath and go there together. Let me take another drink of water. So there's this strange space that opens up right after you walk away from something, right? I'm sure you've had that experience before. Even when it's the right decision, even when your body knows it's right, and something in you exhales the moment you let go, there's still this hollow, aching quiet that moves in. And it's for a moment you might think it's because you made the wrong choice, but it's not that. Your nervous system needs time to catch up. And your heart might need time to realize that it doesn't have to keep fighting, and you don't have to keep bending or trying to make something work that hasn't worked in a long time. And honestly, it doesn't feel like freedom right away, does it? Something or sometimes something in you can feel like, it can feel like you can feel doubtful. Like, did I just make a bigger deal than what it was? Or maybe I could have just let it go again, one more time. Or maybe you hear this old voice like that says something like, maybe I'm just being too sensitive. Ooh, that one's mine. Even when it's been one-sided and the dynamic in the relationship has been draining you, or when you've seen this pattern before, it's like some part of you still wants to take the blame just so you don't have to feel the ache of loss. And if you're someone who has spent years, maybe decades, being the one who holds things together and listens more than you speak, or picks your words carefully so no one gets uncomfortable, or shows up even when you're exhausted, then walking away isn't just a decision, it's a total disruption to your nervous system. It's a deep and profound shift. You're breaking a spell that you've been under for perhaps a very long time. Because it's not just the relationship or the situation that you're leaving, right? It's a version of you that has stayed small inside of it. The version of you that tried to be maybe a good girl, wasn't, or who was waiting for someone to see your worth and reflect it back to you. And now you see it. You see your worth. You see, at least, if not fully your worth, you see you deserve better. It's not okay as things have been. And you're walking out of that old version of you. And it's beautiful. And it stings. You can't bypass it or spiritually sugarcoat it. You can't. You have to sit with it and let whatever emotions are coming up move through you, even if it hurts. You give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling, because there is truly something sacred happening underneath all of this. As you allow this to move, to unfold, as you allow yourself to move through it, you're coming home to yourself. Even if no one else recognizes that, even if no one validates you or understands or sees the cost to you to walk away, even if the people that you're walking away from pretend not to notice or spin their own version of the story. And it's not your job to manage that anymore. What matters is that you are no longer abandoning yourself. You're no longer keeping the peace by sacrificing you. And it's lonely at first. It's confusing. You probably feel sad and relieved and totally unsure. I did not. My sister's calling me. Hold on. Hold on.
I'm not going to edit that out as a little jab to my sister. Actually, I always have my phone off, always. And of all the days to leave it on, anyway, it's one of the ways we tease each other. But so I was talking about after walking away, this feeling of relief that you might be feeling. And then at the same time, potentially also feeling sad and completely uncertain all at the same time is normal. And you may then, in this place of uncertainty about what's to come, you might forget why you left. You might want to go back just so that something feels familiar. And I just want to say that that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean, it just means you're in the middle. And the middle can be messy. This is a little bit like, was it 2 episodes ago when I was talking about the sacred pause between chapters? But I promise you that grief that comes with choosing yourself is holy. I promise you. For me, it has been the most sacred grief that I've ever allowed myself to move through. Because it means something inside of you is really healing. Not here, but here. You're starting to see yourself more clearly, your worth, your value. You are freer now, even if it doesn't feel like it yet, and even if it doesn't yet feel joyful. So if you're in that space and something just ended or is about to, and you're feeling all the feelings, please don't rush through them. And remember, always remember, you're not too much. And you're human, and you're on a path. This path is not for the faint of heart. But you chose it because you have what it takes to move through it. So what happens when you walk away and you sit with the ache and you feel all of the feelings and you don't go back? That's the part no one really prepares you for, right? Because you think, okay, maybe after this, I'll feel better. I'll feel free. I'll feel light. And yeah, that happens. And then there are other moments that set in where you feel this uncomfortable emptiness. And like your hands are suddenly empty after carrying something heavy for so long and you don't quite know what to do with them. That's part of the process too. You've cleared space, but the new hasn't landed yet. And that space can feel lonely, feel weird, or like nothing is happening, even though deep down you know something is shifting. Panic can set in. And the temptation to fill the space really quickly and jump into something new, whether that's another relationship, a project, another distraction, so that you don't have to feel the space in between. But like I said 2 episodes ago, that in between space is so sacred. It's where your nervous system recalibrates and your heart gets to rest. Your inner compass has room to turn without outside pressure. And sometimes it's when the truth gets really loud. Like, this is this is who I am without all the noise. Or, wow, I don't actually miss that dynamic. I miss the version of me I thought I had to be to stay in it. Or I don't want to be needed that way anymore. I just want to be met. I had one of those moments recently when I realized I was done being the overfunctioner, the one who acquiesces, accommodates, like completely done. And it didn't feel triumphant. It felt raw, like letting go of an old coping strategy that used to keep me safe. Because when you start choosing yourself, the way that you relate to everything changes. You're not available for crumbs anymore. You're not the one reaching out over and over, trying to make things work with people who don't show up. You're not bending yourself in half to prove that you're generous or kind or spiritual or strong. And you start to realize that your worth has nothing to do with how much you give. That's the moment something really powerful starts to happen. Even if it's quiet, even if it's private, even if it's still inside of you, you start to take your energy and your power back. And I don't mean that in a big dramatic way. I mean it in the simplest, quietest way. You wake up one morning and you feel yourself not reaching for someone anymore, or you go to write a message and your body says, that's not yours to carry. Or you stop replaying a story in your head and realize he's done. That's you reclaiming yourself. Not because someone validated your choice or everything got wrapped up neatly or you stayed, or this time it's because you stayed with yourself. You listened. You didn't abandon your own knowing this time. And eventually something new does begin to come in. It's a connection that feels different, or an idea, or an opportunity, or just a softening in your body. This quiet sense that you're okay. You're gonna be okay. You are okay now. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you're not trying to earn your place in the world. You're just living it. You're letting yourself have it. You're not proving your worth. You're resting in it. That's what opens up when we stop settling. It's what happens when we give ourselves space to walk away from what no longer reflects who we are. Not everything fills in right away. And that space can feel quiet and raw, that open space. But that's where the new gets born. So here's the part that still makes me squirm sometimes. So that space after the letting go, after you've walked away and you've cried and you've felt everything, and you think, okay, I'm ready now. I'm ready for what's next. I'm ready to be met. I've made the space. I've done the healing. I've honored my worth. So now what? Nothing. Nothing. That's the part no one prepares you for either. When nothing happens right away and the new doesn't show up with a bow on it and the thing you know is meant for you hasn't arrived yet. You hold the line, you hold yourself. And it's not about waiting in some frozen, breath held state like, okay, universe, any minute now. You keep living. You water the parts of your life that feel good to you and true. You rest more. You say yes to small things that bring you joy. You clear out a closet. You talk to a tree. You take a walk without a podcast playing. You stop forcing clarity and instead notice the way that your body relaxes around certain people and contracts around others. And you follow that. You trust it. Because the truth is, the new life you're stepping into probably won't come all at once. It's going to arrive in fragments, in whispers, in little yeses, in nudges that don't make sense until later. In moments when you realize, oh, I would have tolerated that before. I'm not going to do that anymore. That's how it begins and builds. And look, there are going to be days when it still hurts and you miss what was and doubt what's coming and feel like the version of you who's strong and clear and empowered went on vacation and left you with the ache. But it's okay. That's okay. That's part of it. The truth doesn't leave just because you're having a messy day. You don't have to be perfectly embodied every time or every minute of the journey. You just keep coming back to yourself over and over and over again with gentleness. And honestly, some of the most powerful things that I've ever called into my life came in those slower, more vulnerable spaces where I thought nothing was happening. And it turns out a lot was happening. It wasn't happening out there. It was happening in me. And that's what this space is for. It's not a waiting room. I used to always call it a waiting room. It's not a waiting room. It's the place where your roots grow deeper and your energy reclaims itself, where you start trusting, not because someone else told you to, but because your own body is starting to feel safer. Your own heart is starting to beat in rhythm with your truth. And the more you stay with that, the more everything around you starts to shift too. And little by little, something really does begin to shift. Maybe new people come into your life who feel different and actually know how to listen, how to see you, how to meet you where you are. People who don't ask you to shrink in order to stay close. Maybe it's not even people at first. Maybe it's moments where you catch your breath and think, I feel okay. Not ecstatic or transformed, not healed, just okay. And you realize that that is a miracle in itself. And that feeling of, I don't need to chase anything right now. I don't have to fix this. I can just be here. That's what begins to grow when you stop letting your energy be siphoned by dynamics that never gave anything back. And from here, something else starts to take shape. You begin to imagine relationships where you don't have to explain the way your heart works. You don't have to tone yourself down or edit your words so someone won't be uncomfortable. You don't have to do the heavy lifting all the time, emotionally, energetically, or spiritually. Connection doesn't cost you your aliveness anymore. And maybe for the first time in your life, you believe that this is possible. Not just a concept or a hope or something you write in your journal, but something you actually feel in your bones. That you're worthy of relationships that feel like mutual respect, that feel like you can be seen without performing. And that doesn't mean that everything becomes perfect or the right people show up immediately. It does mean you've and that doesn't mean everything becomes perfect or that the right people show up immediately. But what it does mean is you've stopped inviting in the ones who ask you to disappear. That part alone is a huge turning point. Because once you stop making space for what doesn't feel good in your body anymore, when you stop trying to prove you're lovable by being low maintenance or endlessly forgiving, there's this deep, powerful reclaiming that begins. You start to trust your yes again. You stop dismissing your no. You begin to feel safe in your own presence. You stop needing someone else to validate that your feelings make sense, because they do. You stop explaining why something hurt you, because your body already told you. You don't need permission anymore because you've already given it to yourself. So here you are, after the letting go and the grief and the space you didn't expect to sit in for this long. Here you are after the realizations that changed you in ways that no one else may ever fully understand. You're still here, tender and unsure, but something's different now. And perhaps it's not in a way that anyone can see or recognize on the outside, but you feel it in here. Something is softer and clearer and more yours than it used to be. And sometimes it feels like quiet, subtle peace, because you're no longer at war with yourself. You're not trying to make something fit that never did. You're not explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand. You're no longer pouring your energy into places that only reflect back emptiness. There are so many of us walking this same path right now, unlearning what we thought we had to be, untangling from patterns that once felt like connection, but really just taught us to over give, trying to find our way back to something that feels more true. And I believe that the small, quiet choices we're making right now matter. The ones that no one sees and that don't look like much from the outside. These moments shape the life that we're living now and the relationships that we allow in, how we speak to ourselves and how we move through the world, how we show up in love. They shape the kind of world that we're building, not by force, but by strategy and conscious choosing. By the way, we carry and know deeply our enoughness. It's a world where love doesn't mean overextending anymore, where worth isn't measured by productivity, and we don't have to prove anything to be held, seen, or chosen. And I know that some days it still feels hard, and it still will in the days to come. There will be days, well, for me, there have been days where I have had to remind myself of these truths again and again. And there are moments where I want to go back just because it's familiar, not because it's right. And times when I still wonder if the new life I'm calling in is actually coming. It's my ego afraid of that, afraid that I've just imagined it. But from experiences I've had in the past where I've called new and better things in, I promise you, stay the course. It will pay off. More and more, I'm learning to trust what my body tells me. I'm learning to slow down enough to hear it and not push past the subtle indicators, to let quiet days count too. So if you're tired, be tired. If you're grieving, let yourself. If you're starting to feel something new rise in you, some ease, steadiness, okayness, even if it's fleeting or just a glimpse, let it in. There's no rush. You don't have to have this all figured out. You don't owe it to anyone to explain how long this is taking. You're allowed to take your time. You've already done something really brave. You've told yourself the truth, and you've made space for something more honest. You've honored your worth, even when it meant being misunderstood. And that matters. Even if no one ever says it out loud, or gets it, or gets what it took for you to get here, you get it. And that's enough. Thank you for being here with me. If you would like to join my group healing circle called The Hearth, where we are healing the places inside of us that have believed we needed to stay small and over accommodate and acquiesce and not show up and hide ourselves or overperform, you are welcome to join the first Monday of the month at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It is on Zoom. Go to my website to sign up at AllisonBruner.com and use the code WELCOME for $50 off your first time with us. It is a circle in which I am not the leader. I am a co-leader with my spirit allies, guides, and it's powerful. Thank you for listening and for staying with your truth long enough for it to show you something new, because this is the new that we're all creating together. And I can't do it without you. You can't do it without the other person that's listening to me, and the other person's, and they can't do it without you. And, I think you get it. I'll meet you again soon. And until then, take gentle care of your energy. Stay close to yourself, hold yourself, and remember that you are allowed to want more, to protect your peace. You're allowed to walk away from anything that asks you to trade your wholeness for belonging.